All right, it's time to kick it off then. Hello again everyone. Thank you all for joining in and welcome to the first, or let's say the second virtual edition of Revenue Management Forum. I am Murphy Matthew from Ideas and I'll be your host for today. Yes, like I said, this is our second virtual event in about 2 days, but definitely not the first year for us. With a list of attendees that I've just seen joining in, a lot of familiar names and people on the panel as well who have attended the session previously in person while it was still on site. If I may say, the pre-2020 days. Now, for those of you attending it for the first time, Revenue Management Forum, or as we call RMF, we've been having it since 2015, so that's our 6th year as we speak. We did start off with the objective of getting the technology and the development team together, closer rather to the hotel operations team, people for whom they would be actually using the developed products as well, right? So, but we quickly realized that there is hardly a forum in the region which is bringing the industry together as well, a community for knowledge sharing, best practices, and most importantly, without a sales pitch and still have all the players in the industry in the same room. So over the years, we've kind of increased our reach considerably to an extent that we've been holding not just the revenue forums, but also thought leadership sessions towards the end of the year, not just in Pune, but also in Delhi and Bombay. Now, 2020 has not been a year to remember in many ways, right? All of us want to kind of forget in many ways, but yet there are a lot of lessons learned that will hold us good in the coming years. Our industry has been hit the most, but we've shown, let's say, a lot of resilience, as I've always been saying. And one of the few positives, at least for an RMF team here, has been the fact that we've been forced to go virtual. Now, what that means for us at RMF is fortunately not being location constrained. And for the audience, for all of them who've attended today as well, what it means for you is that we can get leaders across the country on the same platform for you to tune into from the comfort of your home or office without having to worry about dodging through the traffic. Right, so what do we have in store for you today? Today for the RMF Above and Beyond, we will start off with a keynote by Klaus Kollmeyer from Ideas, followed by a panel discussion. Some house rules before I kick this off. If you've got questions for all the attendees that I'm seeing rolling up there and comments during the session today, use the Q&A button that you see on the right-hand corner. We will try and answer as many questions as possible, time permitting. But don't worry. If you want your questions to be answered later after the session as well, just ensure that you leave your name in so that we know whom to respond back to. Now, the meeting is being recorded, so for all the panelists as well, just be warned that you are on the camera and being recorded and can be used against you, right? For all the attendees, be assured that this will be shared with you the next week after the event. Now, as always, we love social media. So if you want to promote or want to comment something about the event, please do so, hopefully good. But do use the hashtag RMF2020 while you do so. Right, so let's get this on with then. Above and beyond. All said and done, like I said, 2020 has been a year of opportunities for hoteliers. Now, as we all know by now, you may have heard it in many panels as well, that in the Chinese language, the word crisis means two characters together, danger and opportunity. To that point, 2020 has offered many hotel leaders across the world an opportunity to set things differently. Maybe the way they always wanted, to chart a course which will redefine the way the business is looked at. Right. So many of us on the call have never had witnessed such an impact to the business, and therein lies the learning and the opportunity as well. This is exactly what our panel today, the distinguished ones on the screen, will speak about and throw more light on. But to kick things off, we have our keynote from Klaus Kollmeyer. He, as a chief evangelist at Ideas, Klaus constantly challenges the strategic processes, stimulates thought-provoking conversations, and reinvigorates the future of revenue management and pricing within the hospitality and travel industries. A natural contrarian, Klaus has challenged the status quo in the hotel industry for over 20 years now. Klaus has been an active participant in various industry advisory boards. Of course, you would have heard him across different panels through the years as well. He's not only loves to challenge the status quo, but I've experienced that he really welcomes being challenged in new ways of thinking as well. So over to you, Klaus, now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and great to be here again for the, I guess, third year in a row. And really sorry that I can't be in India, which is, I guess, one of my favorite countries in the world to visit every year. So usually at this time of the year, I would be spending my time with all of you. I wouldn't really call it a keynote, but I want to give just a quick kind of overview of a couple things that are in my mind and some of the themes that I see emerging, hopefully to stimulate some thoughts and some conversations. So I'm gonna just move forward with the slides. So there is a, let me just see if this works. Okay, here we go. So a couple of ideas. This is going to take about 10 minutes, and some of it you might already know. If you agree, great. If you don't disagree, great too. Then we can have a conversation about that later. So what I wanted to take you all through is really kind of three themes over the next few minutes. One is the global macroeconomic trends with a specific lens on India. So there's a lot of good research out there that you have access to, that everyone has access to. So I've consolidated some of that to share that with you today. Then changing consumer behavior, and what are some of the changing expectations from the consumers around the world, and then have a conversation about what are some of the changes that are cyclical, which means they will just happen now, but they're not permanent, versus structural changes, which will be more permanent. And then finally, what does that mean for revenue management, and how we as revenue management community should adopt our thinking as a result. So again, a few minutes just of thoughts. So obviously the industry has been extremely hard hit, or has been the hardest hit of all industries in terms of travel. Some expectations out there, some research that the cumulative lower tourism expenditure as a result of the pandemic until we're back to normal levels will be around $8.1 trillion. And those are obviously just estimates. And those estimates are based on kind of a number of factors, including gross bookings that are being lost from OTAs. Just in 2020, the expectation is that the OTAs will lose about $190 billion in bookings from reduced business. There's about 2/3 of aircraft parked, and 43 airlines have already filed bankrupt, which interestingly is less than in 2018. But the year is not over yet, and the expectation is that by the end of the year, it's probably going to be closer to 60 airlines that are no longer going to be flying, and the planes are going to be parked in the desert. Obviously, Singapore Airlines is not bankrupt, but I just found that picture very, very pretty, so I put that one up. So a huge impact for the industry, as we all know, huge impact for hotels and travel around the world, and a huge impact for all of us. So what does that mean, and where is it going to lead? Well, McKinsey has actually done some really amazing work, and I've used that work quite a bit over the last few months. And McKinsey has established 9 different scenarios of how this pandemic could evolve over the next few years, I would say. And they have classified the scenarios from kind of the best case, which is B5 down here, to maybe the worst case, which is B3 down here. And for India specifically, they also do that by continent or by country or by region. For India specifically, McKinsey currently is expecting this B1 scenario, which means the virus will be contained, and the sector is a little bit is damaged. The sector, meaning the economy, is damaged, and there'll be lower long-term rent growth for the time being. Other countries have different scenarios. For example, the US currently is probably anywhere between B4 here and A1. China is definitely around up here, about A3, where we see China obviously doing pretty well with some of the demand, and the revenues are already exceeding last year's revenues in travel specifically. But some things for India that must be said. You have some advantages, that you have a very strong domestic market, and from the same report that McKinsey produces together on a regular basis, this is the last one from October 20th, India is the second strongest country to come back after Germany and before China. And because of the general strong GDP growth over the last few years, a general strong domestic market, it's expected that India for travel specifically will rebound by 2022 and 23. The cumulative change versus 2019 will be between 10 and 20%, which is better than China and better than many other countries. And the 2020 drop will be between 30 and 40%. So Germany is considered to be the quickest to rebound. India the second quickest, and China, and then all the other countries after that. So you can have some optimism in your future over the next few months. And if you ask me kind of how long will this last at the moment, the situation we're in, I would say you should count at least until next June. So we're about halfway through at the moment, but until next June we'll be in this kind of up and down scenario. And hopefully by next June we'll see a little bit of a more stable trend back to 2019. The consensus is when do we get back to 2019? Consensus here is between 22, 23. Some other countries might be about 2024. So by 24, early 25, most of the countries should be back to where they were by 2019. So what does that mean for the tourism industry or the travel industry specifically? There's a couple areas that have been hit particularly hard, and you as revenue managers need to think very hard what that means for all of your hotels and all your businesses. So first of all, business travel is obviously gone at the moment. International business travel, I should say. I think you can expect some domestic business travel and some high priority travel to come back fairly quickly. The other thing that is, and business travel is obviously very critical. It represents a large number of travel spent, about 15 to 20% of travel spent, and it drives 55 to 57% of revenue for major airlines. So a significant amount of spend. Large conventions are obviously gone for the moment. That's not a surprise. Then international leisure travel is gone for the moment, with the border restrictions continuing to be in place, and group travel, group and tours are also gone for the moment. So those are the segments that have been impacted the most. The segments that are actually the changes that have shifted, obviously international business travel has moved to online, just like we're today. Normally I would be on a 24-hour trip to Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, and spend a week in India. Well, I'm sitting here at 5 a.m. in the morning in Minneapolis, so I'm not spending the money on amazing airline food and amazing India food as well. I'm spending it here in front of my screen. So that's a big impact, but that has some opportunities for the industry. For convention, it's moved to hybrid. I think that's going to be a structural change. We'll see hybrid meetings staying even after the pandemic is controlled. And this is an example from a Singapore conference, Web in Travel, that did an amazing job. They had built a whole studio in Singapore together with the Fairmont Singapore, and ran a hybrid meeting with people both on stage as well as virtually on screen. Instead of the leisure travel, long distance leisure travel, we are seeing drive to and short distance travel, which in many countries has increased dramatically. Visiting friends and family is huge, and we will continue to see that, and that's especially beneficial for countries like India that has a strong domestic market. And obviously, instead of tour groups, we see a lot of demand in alternative accommodation. We talk a lot about digital nomads. People can work from anywhere. They don't have to necessarily work from home or from the office, and that's a complete new segment that has emerged or has even strengthened. So in terms of kind of recovery, there is business out there. It's not that it's all gone away. You have to go out and work with your sales team and look for it. You have to figure out what is recovering first. Your regional travel is recovering very strongly. In-person sales or client meetings are still out there. People are still traveling for business reasons. Essential business meetings are happening. Friends and families are still getting together. Manufacturing, pharmaceutical, construction are all industries that are still operating. And the same with technology companies. So there is business out there. Not everything has gone away. Obviously, it's much, much harder to find that business. So when we look at kind of the consumer changes, what hasn't changed is this concept of convergence. It's actually accelerated, and many people say that we make 5 years of progress in 5 months. So a lot of things are converging. We have revenue management converging with sales and marketing and distribution much faster because we have less people around that have to do more things. Technology is converging much faster. Automation has accelerated over the last few months. So we have the data convergence, the function convergence, and we also have market segments converging. So nothing is the same anymore. But one thing that is the same is that the people are still the critical part, and the consumers are becoming even more critical. So I talked about this last year when I was talking to all of you. As the greatest challenge that companies have today is not the competitors, but it's knowing their customers. And this has never been as important as in this current situation, because we have to ask ourselves, first of all, how do we react to this pandemic and how do we make the most out of it? Well, there's 5 things that I want to tell you that you all as revenue managers should be really looking towards. The first one is really dig into your data, and that's not just understanding the data that you have traditionally looked at, but look at all possible data sources. Look at how you could augment your data that you already have with the relevant data that you need to make the right decisions. And I've talked to many chief commercial officers and chief revenue officers and CEOs, and the first question is always, how do we get the relevant data for our business to really understand what's going on? Then you need to understand kind of your market segmentation. And when I talk about market segments, I don't talk about the leisure versus business segments. I'm really talking about micro segments. Why are people traveling? What do they need to travel? What entices them to travel? How can you convert them to your hotel? You know, who are those people that are still out there and that are looking for hotel rooms? And maybe they're not looking for hotel rooms to sleep, but maybe they're looking for hotel rooms to meet or to work in, or maybe to have Zoom calls like we're having today. So the segmentation has changed, and these old monolithical segments that we used to talk about are no longer relevant. You have to find the new dynamic market segments that have been emerging over the last 5 or 9 months. Then what are the new business models that have come out of these last few months? We have seen the emergence of subscription models for hotels, where hotels are charging $1,500 and you can stay as many days as you want in a month. And that's Citizen M, for example, who's done that for their 20 hotels around the world. We have seen the meet and sleep products emerging, where you can book a meeting room from 6 a.m. all day, and then you can also have a sleeping room for a fixed charge. I mentioned digital nomads that can travel around on some passport that they pay a monthly fee, and they can use multiple hotels and venues. We have seen people issue vouchers for not just for the hotels, but because they don't have an F&B anymore, they work closer with their community in restaurants and event spaces, and even online event spaces to make it more relevant for them. So the conversation about driving revenue is no longer just a revenue management conversation. It's really a commercial leadership conversation, and you as revenue managers have now the opportunity, and you're uniquely positioned because you have access to all the data, you understand the data, you have analytical mindsets to move ahead and take this opportunity to think more commercially. And what does that mean? That means not just thinking about pricing and how do I fill my rooms at the best possible price, but also looking at distribution channels, marketing and sales, and loyalty and room and revenue and pricing, and bring all that together and really move ahead as commercial in a commercial leadership way. But the most important thing in all of that, when I talk to leaders in the industry and the most expert in the industry, is agility and speed. What one thing has shown in this crisis is that the companies that move the fastest with the highest agility, speed, flexibility. They're not afraid to fail, but just afraid to innovate. They're not afraid to innovate and not afraid to fail are the ones that are going to succeed. So if you want to frame it up in one sentence, I've just heard that a couple days back. Somebody told me you have to build a mean, lean, customer-obsessed machine. So you have to understand your customers, you have to be obsessed about your consumers, and you have to be out there making as many changes and as many innovation and be as dynamic and agile as you can. So just a couple data points here that I found very interesting. Price is no longer the overriding factor. Again, this is research from McKinsey based on Trivago data. And you can see the red line, kind of what drives decision-making between August and September of this year. And this is for the US customer, but I would argue it's probably true for many others. And as you can see that the red line, price was probably the most relevant factor back in April. And price has now moved as the least relevant factor when people are searching for hotels or travel providers. And the first one is now relevance. Distance is kind of in the middle here. The ratings are also very important, which is all about health, safety, security, and price is no longer the overriding factor. And in fact, in many cases, I've seen hotels pricing more and pricing more aggressively and higher than before, because they know that there's only certain people that need to travel right now and they're very price insensitive. The other interesting factor, there's a lot of talk about engaging with consumers differently. And there's an example that I found of a new booking journey where people are obviously very concerned about their flexibility. So you can search not just by destination and check in and check out, but by cancellation factors, by the distance, by your health measures. And then when you check in, you go through a checklist that includes, have you completed your health checks? Have you completed your digital check-in? You know, what kind of cocktail would you like when you arrive in your room? So there's a kind of a gamification during the check-in process. And then because you don't have breakfast in the hotel anymore, in many cases, you know, you get a voucher to consume your drinks or breakfast, not at the hotel, but at the coffee shop next door, because this particular hotel has engaged with the community and has roped them in and has worked out some partnerships with them. So there's great opportunities, again, to step out of your comfort zone and step out of what you have done in the past and come up with new ideas. This is the best time to fail because the risk is very small at the moment. So with that, I kind of want to wrap up to say that revenue management is still relevant. Revenue management is still kind of your GPS to get you to your destination that you want to get to. It's still about bringing together disparate data, help you make accelerate decision making through better science and wherever you apply that science, be it marketing, revenue, distribution, loyalty, because ultimately it's all about establishing that trust. And you as revenue leaders or commercial leaders, you are trusted in the organization and you can help drive your business forward. So that is my short kind of introduction, setting the scene, some of the thoughts that I have and some of the themes that I have seen in emerging over the last few months. Back to you, Murphy.
Brilliant. Thank you, Klaus, for all that insights. Right, there are a lot of key notes to kind of take from there. You did mention about the unique position that we are in, and that's something that I'm sure will be echoed, by the panel as well that we have today. That we are definitely in a very unique position, like you mentioned. Innovate something, and if you fail, it is not going to have a major impact at this point of time. So this is kind of the best opportunity. But with that, maybe then let me, in fact, move on to our event in terms of the panel discussion today. That's our panel today. But before I even announce the panel, right, allow me to introduce Karan, who will be the moderator, or let's say the interrogator, with all the distinguished panelists that we have today. So with that, over to you, Karan.
Thank you, Murphy. And Klaus, that was a wonderful opening. A lot of things actually stuck with me, which I will go about as we proceed the proceedings. So getting on with, we have up first, we have Aman with over 15 years of rich experience and expertise in business analytics, revenue management, strategy, distribution, and reservation systems. He's joining us here from Hyatt. Moving on next, we have Ram. He holds a strong commercial acumen along with being a revenue management, digital marketing, and sales strategist. Apart from that, as we all know, he contributes frequently to several regional and global forums in the areas of marketing insights, pricing, and revenue management. And then we have Aditya Shumsher Mala. He's a hotel general manager with an experience of multiple flavors of hotels, from pre-opening to conversion hotels, renovation, repositioning, with a rich sales and marketing background and experience. And then we have Karishma, a revenue veteran, who has now entered the domain of managing finances for a select few IHCL hotels. Klaus, we already know and we've heard of him. And moving on, we have Rajesh, an experienced administrator with a demonstrated history of working in various industries, skilled at negotiation, market research, business planning, management, and retail. And last but not the least, we have Kunwardeep with a keen eye on being customer-centric, striving for customer success. He joins us from RateGain. So a warm welcome to all my panelists. And yes, without further ado, let's jump straight in. And I'd like to put CS Ram right on the hot seat. Ram, we've spoken about total revenue management for some years to come within this region. And of course, we also spoke about it last year during the event. There were some steps already being taken in that direction. How is the current scenario accelerating the need to look at full revenue picture instead of just optimizing rooms? Are you only seeing a larger acknowledgement of going beyond the room portfolio now, or given the pandemic, or has it already been seeping in and it's just accelerated given the current atmosphere?
Thank you so much, Karan. Thanks for putting me right there in the spot. Once again, Klaus, thanks for that great introduction out there. I think you kind of set the agenda clear out there with your wonderful presentation. I think one thing we all have realized now is we've been talking disruption for long. And the truly disruptive moment is right now upon us as an industry, right? Things have hit us truly hard. We've had a lot of knockout punches, to use a boxing terminology out there. And I also believe that in this moment of chaos is when there is a lot of change that's going to happen. I think Klaus made that statement, something out there, but yes, truly chaos is a time for great changes, because chaos brings in opportunity for those who are looking at it. Total revenue, are revenue managers important at a time when hotel rooms demand are at its lowest, at least in the past 2 decades that I've been in this field? Absolutely. I think there's no other more important time for revenue managers than today. And to answer your question in terms of total revenue management, I think this is a time for hotels to start not looking just at total revenue management, but actually at total asset management. It's time to start looking at how each and every part of your asset can be monetized. I think revenue managers need to actually start looking at, I mean, we've been great at managing demand, thanks to tools such as ideas out there in the market. We've been great to manage demand when during the good old days. But today it's time to start looking at how we can create demand, right? And that's what I think that the revenue manager needs to be the one who is driving it from the forefront out there. So total asset management, in my opinion, is what we are looking at. Because what I also believe is the more stronger ancillary revenue opportunities you have as a hotel, the better is your chances of holding your overall pricing. When you as a hotel are relying completely on just rooms, then there is panic out there, because you just have, I mean, to quote IPL, because cricket, hey, we are a nation of cricket fanatics. If the key batsman fails, then what do? Panic hits. But when you have multiple players who are available to score it for you, I believe that as a hotel, you can actually start holding on to your pricing. And that's the most important thing as to why we need to start looking at total revenue management out there. The question, of course, is, I raised this during the forum last time as well. We all talk about total revenue management, but how many of us are trained in that particular area? That's one question, I think, to which I still am looking for answers. But definitely, I think the lines are totally blurred. sales, marketing, the revenue person today has to definitely wear his or her sales, marketing hats right now. They are the commercial leaders out there, and also identify what are the right technologies they need to work with at this point of time. You know, so yes, I guess overall revenue culture is required at this point of time, and total revenue management or total asset management is the way forward, for the immediate future. And yes, I also believe, and I've made this statement multiple times across my LinkedIn pages as well, that I think gone are the days of just plain ADRs and RevPARs. I think we are looking at total revenues now.
Absolutely. And yes, like even last time we came upon the biggest, the speed break was training and getting resources who are equipped to handle or know what total revenue management is and what it entails with. So while sticking on to that, I want to move on to the other side of the coin of total revenue management is towards the tech side. And I'll move to Rajesh. Rajesh, with hotels looking at new streams of revenue moving forward, and the playbook that's been used till date for capturing demand via the search no longer relevant because locals are more familiar with their country. So they aren't really searching for hotels, they know what to look at, and hence the less research required. How does that play to your strength as an experienced booking platform? And how does technology overall help promote such a strategy?
So, hi everybody. Thank you for having me here, Ideas. A very relevant question, Karan. Frankly, yes, domestic tourism, we already see flourishing, especially leisure. We've seen a big uprise, where drivable distances from Tier 1 concerned. Cities continue to be a challenge. And therefore, I don't totally agree with you, wherein, the search, no longer relevant. In fact, I was planning a trip to Maldives myself, and a few borders have opened out, unlike Klaus, and even we didn't expect Dubai to open out or even Maldives to open out. Uh, you'll be surprised to hear that, Agoda was offering rooms. Again, the market spoiler in one sense, but actually delight for consumers. Really cheap rooms for the property, that I was looking at. Of course, got sold out in a jiffy, and therefore just proves your point wrong. And search continues to rule the roost, and depending on who's offering what on which day. So I think even though people do know their the neighboring cities well, they still try to search for deals, and price being the disruptor here, I think which always will be key. Again, I will also go with Ram. I've seen many of my friends and many of our customers, more than 10,000 customers now with Star globally, and many of them have held on to their prices because they know their product well and they know their consumer well. And frankly, we've suddenly seen good demand. We always said that demand will come back, and I'm so glad to see Klaus's report, and very heartening to see, and I'm going to share it with many of my customers. They'll be happy. So yes and no. People who know their destinations, know their hotels, they will directly reach out to the hotels and get the best deal from them. If you're a regular customer, you know that you're going to get the best deal anyways from one of the larger chains that are already here on this panel. But by and large, 3 stars, 4 stars, and the smaller vacations, yeah, we've seen a great increase in homestays. There again, I think the search plays a very important role as to where you want to go, what are the kind of facilities that that are available in the property. Again, would require a search. So don't agree with you, Karan, but I think search continues to be a important part, of the booking process.
Absolutely, and like I said, it was always our thought that yes, domestic travel search is an option where, because people know what they want, the consumer knows where he wants to go and stay. It's only when he's traveling to an unknown land, it's where search comes in and kicks in. And it's a very good point that you brought up about staycations. Like Airbnb, and where search is a value and it's an added advantage there. So thanks for bringing that up. And moving on is there's been a lot of buzz around being agile that's been spoken a lot lately. And we've heard over the last couple of months and how one has to be agile and focus on their near terms with the uncertainty of business. So Aman, my question is more towards is for you, and it's more towards safeguarding yourself from such unprecedented changes in future. Okay, so I'm not asking to share any hide strategies, but however, if you could let us know of some steps consciously being taken in the region, which are towards making business sustainable and the revenue role relevant in the years to come.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'll just continue from where Ram left from a total hotel revenue management perspective. As a company, we have been very focused on total hotel revenue management. In the last forum also that we had, I explained that we are already working towards total hotel revenue management. So earlier this year in February, we thought that we need to take our total hotel revenue management concept to a next level. So we started implementing the TRM concept across all the hotels in our region. We had a conference just before the pandemic set in so that our revenue managers are equipped with the tools as well as the thought process is aligned to work towards the total hotel revenue management concept as a region. Unfortunately, the pandemic set in and we were not really able to implement the concepts, but I think so from a sustainability perspective for revenue management, it's really important that we start looking beyond rooms. And that's what has really happened during the pandemic. The room demand, all of us know, tanked big time across all the regions. But there are different streams which help hotels leveraging their cash flows. So like Ram mentioned, it's all about total asset management. We need to work towards that. We have seen during the pandemic time that certainly home deliveries, which was never really popular in hotels, has started picking up as a market. So that's what we are as a company are also focusing upon, that we should optimize all the revenue streams. So during the pandemic time, the first and foremost thing that we thought was to build the consumer confidence. The confidence was really low. So that's what the first step that we started working upon. Our company, Hyatt, was rated one of the best hygiene and safety standards. So that's how you build safety consumer confidence in the client. And then you need to be a bit more flexible. So we started doing the same from our cancellation policies. You need to give more flexibility to the consumer so that they can book without worrying about the future. From an agility perspective, one thing that we need to really keep in mind is that we are not putting all our eggs in one basket. Historically, we have seen that international hotel chains are really dependent on inbound business. There's a lot of dependence on RFPs, corporate business. Domestic hotel chains, we have seen they rely more on the domestic demand. And so there needs to be a healthy mix. And that's what we are concentrating more upon, that we need to have a balance between the inbound travel and the domestic travel. Currently, in such a scenario of a pandemic, domestic demand is a real driver of demand. So we need to balance it out.
Super. Yep. Absolutely. You need a perfect balance in any pandemic, non-pandemic. That's where a perfect business mix is struck. So I'll move on to Karishma. And it's a similar question as posed to Aman, but what are your takes for some of the steps that can be taken, and or more so approaches such as fail fast or expansion of roles that are being explored or put into action?
Hi, Karan. Good evening, and Klaus. Good morning. It's really good to be back and reconnected with all of you. Feels like, you know, we're back in the same room last year. So thank you so much for organizing this virtual session today. And just carrying on from what Ram, Aman, and what we heard from Klaus earlier, I think revenue managers have a very, very larger and much more responsible role to play. So of course, we've spoken about commercial, being commercial leaders, looking at the hotel as an asset, looking at maximizing revenue per square foot. So all those concepts that we theoretically, always wrote down and looked at lots of PowerPoints, TrevPAR, GoPAR, they're actually, guess what? They're coming alive right now. We are actually doing those calculations because our very survival depends on it. I would just bring another dimension to the whole asset management piece is, companies that have to sustain themselves in this particular time have to really, really focus on the cost side of things. So, there are two types of costs in our industry. The whole concept of revenue management was built on perishable product, high fixed cost, low variable cost. We have to go back and question that holy grail of fixed costs. What are we talking about here? What is fixed cost? Payroll, stores and supplies, fuel, light, power. Guess what? These are not holy grails anymore. We have to go back into the entire picture of the hotel and question everything on the cost side, the way we are trying to find opportunity on the revenue side, and apply some of our knowledge. I think as revenue people, there are some great, inbuilt traits that we all have and which have been honed over the years. We are very good with data, we're good with logic, we're good with analytics. We've always lived with some level of uncertainty, right? I mean, in the good old days, when I was the revenue manager on property and my general manager would walk up to me and say, you know what, I need the 3-month forecast on my table by this evening. That was it. How do I forecast 3 months out? But we've all done it, right? So we're all used to living with some level of uncertainty. And, today, that is our biggest strength. And it's up to us to now take those leaps of faith, move into domains that we haven't explored earlier. And that's where I would completely agree with the whole fail fast approach. There is no better time to take risks. The only thing, if I were to put a financial hat onto it, I would just say that it needs to be done intelligently, because we can't afford to take risks which are going to cost us millions. We need to be very sharp about it. So when we do anything new, we need to have a full ROI analysis. We need to understand that, scenario A, if I succeed, this is what it's going to be. Scenario B, if I don't, this is going to be the impact, and then take the plunge. So take a calculated plunge, know what you're getting into. I'm not saying don't take the plunge, go for it, but know what you're getting into and try to mitigate your risks. So which means maybe if you want to explore a new revenue stream, probably look at a revenue share model as opposed to one that requires a lot of investment, or invest in partnerships. Look at people in the industry who want to collaborate with you and move along with them. There is no better time than now for collaboration.
Super. So what I do take away from that is that now is the perfect time to really broaden your horizons. And it's a good time to venture into new domains, just like you. And another thing that it takes me towards is something that I term, or I would call, is flexible resource management. So on that topic, and as we know that these are difficult times, considering the staffing, and India in particularly has seen job security in a very, very different light than the previous market downturns. And it can be very difficult to keep up the morale, keep the team motivated to look in at ways of sustaining the business during the current mode. And I don't see a better person than Aditya to answer this one. I have closely followed you, Aditya, on social media, interacted with a couple of your team members, and they're very upbeat. You're also in the list of the Forbes best managers in India. So how do you keep your teams performing at their best, especially the revenue and the sales team?
Hi, Karan, and hi, everybody. So good to see you all after such a long gap. I'm sorry I'm not on camera. There's been a technical glitch on my end. But such a pleasure to hear all of you and meet all of you. Yes, Karan, I think one of the biggest challenges that unfolded along with the crisis was the people front. And, while business was taking its shape as it was, and we were kind of, looking at it helplessly in many ways in the initial stages, the people part became quite critical for us to handle then and there, because people were looking for answers. There was anxiety, there was fear, the whole subject of mental health, came into the debate. So I think most important thing at that time, and continues to be even today, is communication. I think it's very important in a crisis to communicate real time with your people, with all the stakeholders. And we were kind of proactive, and that the social media push as well is a part of that. The idea was to spread as much of positive sentiment as we could, and let people know that we were doing our bit to deal with the situation as it unfolded. Empathy, became an overarching sentiment that people were looking for, and some kind of a security. We came up with innovative ways of engaging with our people, with their families, because a lot of anxiety was originating back with the families. We brought the families over, we showed them the workspace, the steps that we were taking, and what was commendable was that for Hilton, as we launched Hilton Clean Stay, which was one of the first brand initiatives launched for as a COVID protocol. The heart of the house was more critical, actually. If the kind of focus that we had to put in the heart of the house to get our cleaning protocols aligned with Hilton Clean Stay gave a lot of assurance to the staff that their wellness and their well-being mattered to the organization. In addition, we also enhanced insurance limits. We expanded the insurance cover for our employees, especially the ones who were more susceptible, in the critical age group. We got the team members and their families consistently tested on premises, and even had their tests done at home wherever they needed assistance. And to keep the motivation parts, honestly, they were all hearing news from all sorts of sources. So it was very important to clean up the information that was going to them, and speak about facts, speak about the real situation, how it would affect them, being as honest as possible, without obviously at the same time addressing the fears. Hope became a very important aspect of the survival journey, because we had to generate that positivity through creating hope. And again, we were sharing things real time. And if you look at today, the headlines that we've been reading over the past couple of days, the factory output is at a 10-year high. Markets are looking at a 7% growth, with the banking sector leading the way. Real estate is up 36% year on year. Tech stocks are up. Pharmaceuticals are showing an upward trend. Auto sector, we all know, is a good story. So when you kind of start sharing these positive stories around, that you're not far behind, and people can have real hope for recovery, even for our industry, which obviously is lagging behind in the curve. And whether it's sales and marketing, or it's the chef, or it's the front office, or the food and beverage personnel, it's the crisis was in terms of its anonymity, it was equal for everybody, and I think we all shed our departmental walls, and we're dealing with it together, and receiving the information, and working on it together. So overall, great learnings, and I think we can always all look back later and look at how we steered through the storm. But great learning for all of us.
Absolutely, and it's the way you really put it is, clear-cut communication. Remove the noise, remove the noise, as we call dirty data in our field. Remove the noise, and it also comes down to being employee-centric, like you said, getting them tested, screened, giving them the satisfaction of them being safe, and they have a place where they can come and work peacefully. And staying on this topic a little longer, one of the key changes that's been brought about by, or I would say rather accelerated with the current scenario, is digitalization. So particularly with teams that have traditionally not been, for example, the support teams in India, and even at IDS, for instance, we've always been on site. And in many ways, most of the teams have been forced to work from home. So with the technology infrastructure surprisingly working all well at the point that productivity in the general sense has increased. So Kumandeep, how do you see all this impacting the customer experience, for the better or the worse?
Hi, Karan. Thanks. Hi everyone. I think there's a mixed bag to both of it. Some of the things have definitely improved. Some of the things have definitely worsened. Like the biggest example right now, all of us are being connected on technology. I would have not probably, someone sitting in Pune, someone sitting in Punjab, Klaus is sitting all across 7 continents away. The technology. So, it is indeed that technology has greatly, complemented us in a lot of cases. It has replaced a lot of traditional support practices. And I think in general, point when you said, ideas, most of those, implementation was on site. I think in general, everybody was moving on the cloud, because that makes things much faster. So I think it gels along with that. But coming from a very traditional, hospitality industry background, my firm belief is that nothing can actually replace a human touch. Customer experience itself, by the definition, means it has a word experience in it, so you can't really take it away. We at RateGain also been enjoying a lot of brainstorming sessions, whiteboarding physically pre-COVID era with the customers, which we do it a lot with technology. Does the impact is very much the same? May or may not be. I think while the customers respect the safety, hygiene, we're not meeting them face to face because it's in their favor and our favor. But virtually, on a video call, it makes it much easier. I think the customer experience methodologies have, or might have evolved, but that's about it, as I might want to say. But I think what I can really say, like, no matter whether it's a 5G or a 50G, I think which will come in future, but human touch can never be replaced. So I can't say that it has really become better, but we're getting there. We're bridging the gap with the help of technology.
Super. So not all the way there, the way Klaus said it was lean, mean, client-centric or client success machine. Technology does bring you one step closer, but then at the end, it's always human touch, definitely. That is the core element and value there at times, at least from a service-centric industry. So, and moving on, yes, this is again, we're dealing with the unexpected overall, and that is pretty much what the theme of the year has been. Pandemic to work from homes to radical changes in organizations towards the tech landscape. So while staying on that, I would like to ask Ram, as he's been very, very close to the market and he has his finger on the pulse here, on how do you monitor the overall market situation to predict the uncertainty, maybe in terms of pandemic or any other economical influencing factors for the industry? Do you have a method in place?
Well, honestly, there's no magic formula.
No 8-ball to rub and say what's coming up next, is it?
Yeah, but I think like Karishma said, and like a couple of others mentioned as well, I think, look, in the past, we all, as revenue managers, learned to deal with uncertainty and adapt to it. The reality is this is of a much, much greater magnitude, and it is important for us to adapt to this situation. Data becomes all the more important in these times, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is one of my favorite statements that, data is nothing but numbers, and you need to find out what story that number holds and pick up the relevant part of the story for today's times. Okay, so I think there were business, Klaus actually pointed this out in his presentation about how today's target audience is changing. So it is important for us to understand as to what is your target audience for the hotel and what is it that you have to offer for them. Hypothetical example, if you are a conference hotel, let's a convention hotel, there isn't any large groups happening. Klaus made that statement, right? So who is your target audience going to be? If it is the domestic staycation customer or people who are coming into that city for short haul visits, is your website, are your channels still offering the conference packages? I see a lot of hotels actually promoting themselves as staycations, but selling business travel offers on their booking engine. You can't sell oranges to someone who's looking for apples, right? So you need to be selling what the customer is wanting today. The market is currently extremely dynamic. We are already seeing that in Europe, where the business pace was on a rise, and with the lockdowns, it has started to trend down. So currently the markets are extremely dynamic, and we need to be quick on our feet until the baseline comes in, which again, there's a lot of positive articles that, hey, you know what, by Q1 2021 there is going to be a little bit more stability, vaccines are going to be in place. So at least for the next 3 to 4 months we need to be quick on our feet. What I do is I usually adopt like a scenario based thinking, whereas basically, I usually have for every set of dates ahead, I usually have I would say best, medium, and the worst case scenarios. And as I start seeing, every day is going to trend towards one of those, and you have your plans on how this is going to be working. I would actually love to hear how Ideas is forecasting at this point of time, when there is no past demand that is coming into play out here. But I think all of us are doing a trial and error forecasting and trying to understand what is the best. For 2021, what is it that we need to work on? I think both from a revenue, cost, expenses, all 3 point of view, I think we need to adopt a zero-based budgeting, which is basically assuming with a clean slate out there and not going forward. Lastly, most important is to understand what is changing out there in terms of the market and in terms of the customer. Example, customers on leisure holidays are definitely booking longer length of stay. What can you do to encourage them to book longer? Customers staying with you on leisure, unlike the past where people used to stay in a hotel but maybe also prefer to eat outside, today they prefer to eat at the hotel. How can you encourage incremental revenue from that customers out there? I was somebody who would go on a holiday to disconnect. But today when I go, if I ever plan a holiday, we are all multitasking and shouldering a lot of responsibilities. So whenever we get time to take our time off, I would actually go to a destination which still has connectivity out there. So connectivity becomes more important. Flexibility of policies extremely important. And lastly, I think that's a very, very strong point that Klaus made about pricing. Safety is prioritized over pricing today. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. When you are going to travel with your family, with your loved ones on a holiday, are you going to choose a cheaper hotel, or are you going to pay a little bit of premium for a safer hotel?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think that is something we need to know, and forward-looking data, very important. Ideas provides it, and there are other partners who provides forward-looking data. So rather than post-morteming data and understanding what happened yesterday, start looking at what is looking up there forward and start adapting there. Thank you.
Absolutely. So zero start and being agile is the 2 highlights there. And sticking on and delving a little deeper into the topic of dealing with the unexpected, I'll now turn to Klaus as he can give us the global perspective of how businesses are building strategies and using technology to better anticipate requirements to avoid, say, project delays, customer escalations, burnout, and services becoming a bottleneck on organization success.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your comments. I'm glad my comments at the beginning resonated. So I think what the one thing that we've seen, and the conversations I've had with C-level around the world, C-level executives around the world over the last few months, automation is accelerating, and kind of that convergence of technology that I've been talking about. The hotel companies or the travel companies that can afford it that we see a lot of investment going into a new infrastructure and new technology ecosystem in many companies that connects kind of revenue and marketing and sales automation and distribution systems. So I think I concur with the thought about being laser focused on your customer, understanding your customer well, not using price as the leading kind of focus, but there's a lot of other things that people are concerned about rather than the price that you're paying. And it's not true for everyone, but there's people out there that are price insensitive. And if you have the right technology in place to connect all your different data points and get to your data quickly and efficiently and turn that data into information and then information to strategies, that should set you up very, very nicely for success going forward.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And yes, so what you started with was pretty much the theme across the entire session today. So I know we're right at the clock. So we have one interesting question that's come through the crowd, and it's from the Lodi Hotel. So they said that they've been operating with asset management techniques since hotels have reopened. However, one thing which has been very prominent in terms of guest feedback has been hygiene and safety standards, which we've spoken about. But however, there has to be a balance between earnings before interest taxes, basically EBITDA, and operating expenses. So this gentleman wants to know what the panel's suggestions to hotels in terms of this towards balancing would be. It'll be an open question on who would want to take this.
I think the way that Karishma answered at the
Yes.
very beginning with a shrewd financial aspect there, I think
Okay.
we all know that Karishma, definitely about the hygiene, definitely it does come into play,
Absolutely.
but it's not something that you can run away with. But it's about the balancing act that he's being spoken about.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as hoteliers, I just want to say that our industry was one of the foremost to, build the coping strategies with the pandemic. Literally overnight, the entire customer experience was mapped, remapped. All the SOPs have been revisited in our industry, right from pre-arrival to arrival to the stay. Everywhere in every hotel company, there are very clear SOPs on hygiene, safety. I think that's something I have to give a hand to all of us around the table. All our companies rose to the occasion. They figured it out that the only way to get the guest back is to make the guest feel safe. And I think all of us have done enough and more. There's enough and more out there. So I would say there are some things that cannot be compromised on at all. And we cannot compromise on the guest experience in any way because our revenues come from there. What we have to focus on when it comes to asset management is, apart from the traditional, since we're talking asset management, I will just elaborate a little bit, and I would say, apart from the traditional revenue streams, where else can I generate more money for the hotel? We can break down asset management into revenue and costs, and I'll just speak a little bit on both of them. So on the revenue side, it would really be focusing on where else can I get my money? What kind of alternate revenue streams can I generate? Is there some space in the hotel that I could possibly lease out or rent out? Or is there something that would resonate with today's very, very hygiene and safety conscious customer? Can I work out exclusive meeting spaces or workspaces, maybe charge a certain premium for them, maybe look at a different pricing model. So that's where the whole innovation in the commercial part of asset management comes in. And this is where I see a lot of collaboration today between revenue, sales, operations, finance, IT. Everybody's part of some cross-functional team or the other, and we're all literally thinking like entrepreneurs today. So that's on the revenue side. And on the cost side, similarly, as I said, when I said fixed costs, there is no holy grail. I, of course, didn't mean to compromise on standards, but what we really need to focus on is, are there some fixed costs in there that we could probably postpone in terms of incurring those expenses in the current situation? Can we negotiate better contracts with our suppliers? I'm sure we've all done that, right? But we need to do that every step of the way because that's going to be the way forward. Can we utilize technology a little better, and therefore maybe save on a certain number of people doing a certain amount of job, or, bring in better and sharper systems to manage the hotel air conditioning, or things like that, save on the so-called fixed costs, the holy grail, as I call it. So that's where asset management can truly, truly add value to the industry. I hope that answers the question.
It definitely does, and it does really throw light on to both ends of it, the revenue aspect and the finance hat that you're wearing. So thank you so much for that. We have a couple of more questions, but then what we would do is for the our participants right there, we'll take these questions offline and we can share them with you post the event. I would now It was a wonderful conversation here, and I will now bring this to a close. I will hand it off to Murphy to close it down for us. Murphy, over to you, please.
Thank you, Karan, and thank you all the panelists as well for the insightful session. I know that we, due to want of time, is that the reason why we are not able to take so many of the other questions that we had, and the audience had as well, right? So, with that, once again, thank you. A very insightful session, a lot to ponder, and definitely makes me feel safe that the industry is here to stay and that we are possibly creating, or rather witnessing, building a base which will not just steady the vertical but also converge it, as Klaus and the other panelists also pointed out correctly. From all of us here at RMS, a big shout out to all the panelists who took time out to share the vision with us. Last but not the least, to all the audiences on the call as well. I know we've just went overboard by about 5 minutes, but it's thanks to all the interactive audience that you have been. Extremely interactive with your questions, just the way that we like it as well. More importantly, here's to all the hoteliers who have, through these tough times as well, not just stayed resilient, but also pitched in to shape it better as we move forward. So have a nice evening, lunch, or day ahead, whichever part of the globe you are in. And thank you so much for attending the session today. To everybody, until we meet next time, hopefully in person.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.